In every election year, political worlds are turned upside down. Newses are on fire with breaking news, updates, campaigns dropping out, people dropping in, endorsing other people, etc. 2020 has served and lived up to the hype. The question today is, who is Joe Biden's strongest vice president for a running mate? My answer to that is Amy Klobuchar. And we will look at three key points. First, we're going to talk about Joe Biden's vice president position now, and then we're going to talk about the vice president field. And thirdly, we're going to talk about the importance of Joe Biden's decision and how it all leads to hopefully choosing Amy Klobuchar for Biden's sake. So first, what do we know? Biden's vice president position now. He wouldn't be in a position if he'd already picked a candidate, but he is not. According to The Guardian, in an article released on March 17th, Joe Biden is uncertain still of who he will pick, but he knows, quote, "I'll pick a woman," unquote. Joe Biden said that in a past Sunday debate during the month of March, and since then it's the middle of April and we still haven't found out who he has endorsed. What that tells me as an outsider is that he's taking the time and hoping to make a correct decision. But for his sake and for his polling sake, he needs to make the right decision. Now, during his entire campaign trail, Joe Biden has preached and preached and preached he wants to choose a woman for vice president. And he is one of the largest advocates for progressivism with women in politics. This announcement comes to a shock to no one. But what we see here, in my opinion, is Joe Biden might be limiting himself, and we'll talk about that at the importance of the decision. So next, we're going to talk about the vice president field of women specifically. In an article released on March 23rd from Forbes, Joe Biden is considering these people for vice president: Governor of New Mexico, Michelle Lujan Grisham, Senator Catherine Cortez Maste, and in addition to that, he's considering previous presidential candidates Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar, and Elizabeth Warren. Now, this is the field of potential vice president candidates for Joe Biden. But what do each of them have in common, and what do each of them have separate that set them apart from each other? Well, Joe Biden has also stated in his campaign trail that he is looking to pick a vice president of a woman of color, which is significant because that would rule out several of these candidates. But the question comes down to whether Joe Biden is choosing a vice president for the people appeal, the polling appeal, or for policy appeal. And each one of these candidates apply in a different way to Joe Biden's appeal. And in my opinion, if Joe Biden wants to pick a woman of color, that his best option would be Kamala Harris, because the American people have heard her name the most. She's been in the running for president, and it would be easy for the pair to link up. Next, if he wants to choose someone who fits the polling the best, someone who will boost his ratings against Donald Trump, he's probably going to want to pick Elizabeth Warren. In regards to that, is Elizabeth Warren does not hold a lot of policy similarities as Joe Biden. Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren, in the actual Democratic debates that we saw televised on TV before the COVID-19 outbreak that has put it all to a halt, before that, we saw debates going back and forth between Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren. Brutal attacks on each other. Both people's policies did not line up with the others. So I don't foresee that happening, but if he wanted the most boost in his ratings, I would go with Elizabeth Warren because she has a very strong support. And she must like Joe Biden in some way, or she would have dropped out of the race before Super Tuesday and allowed Bernie Sanders to beat Joe Biden. But she stayed in the polls, and Joe Biden was actually able to take the majority of delegates during Super Tuesday because Bernie and Elizabeth split the numbers. But lastly, who lines up with the best policy appeal with Joe Biden? And that is Amy Klobuchar. Both are moderately conservative within the Democratic Party, and a lot of their views line up together. I believe that as far as policy's sake, they are the best pair to line up if he is to choose a woman. Now, she is not a woman of color, which might go against some of what Joe Biden has not yet promised but preached about. Lastly, I would like to talk about the importance of Joe Biden's decision in choosing a vice president. According to a poll conducted by Fox News during March 21st to March 24th, they polled over 1,000 random registered voters, and they released the results on March 29th of this year. Of that poll, it was a Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, similar to an election poll, and you'll be shocked at the results. It shocked me when I saw that Trump had 40% support from these registered voters and Joe Biden had 49%. Now you look at me and you say, well, that's only 89%. That's true, because 11% of voters are yet undecided. But as it currently stands, Joe Biden has a 9% lead in the polls, which indicates if we were to have an election today, Joe Biden would be our president. Now, with the increasing concern over Joe Biden's health and his mental state and his physical state and all of the things that go on with the presidency, whether he can handle that workload, if something were to happen to Joe Biden, the vice president would be the next person in charge. So that puts a matter of importance on his decision. And so I believe that it's not only important to his campaign to choose someone that would line up to carry out his policy if something were to happen to Joe Biden, someone that has the same views as him should be carrying out the same views on his polls and carry out the same policy. That's why I believe Amy Klobuchar lines up best with him, because their policies match. Now, she is a woman, which will fix his promise to the American people of choosing a woman vice president. She is not a woman of color, but I believe she is the strongest candidate because their policies align. So who is Joe Biden's strongest vice president candidate for a running mate? Amy Klobuchar. Thank you.